curious whether you see this as sort of the ed tech that we've been waiting for, the chosen one, so to speak, or is this just going to be another thing that makes education maybe a little bit better if it's used well, and it's cool, on to the next thing in 20 years?
There's two sort of tentative hypotheses I have. One is that edtech's actually going to be pretty slow on this technology, and that industry is going to lead, and a lot of the applications that are being used in industry and businesses will get adopted by students and teachers way ahead of like the equivalent product being available built for education. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of chaos, actually, because I think it's going to be really tough for teachers, especially. They're going to have students coming into class being like, "Hey, look, I found this thing and it solves like all the assignments for this entire class in some way you didn't anticipate." Or your colleagues are going to be using tools that make your research irrelevant or something like that. So, and the economic incentives in industry are just totally different than they are in education to kind of drive that sort of adoption. So I think it will be hard for education oriented companies to kind of keep up because they have a lot of masters they're serving, right? The second thing that I think is interesting in this area is that a lot of ed tech is very well intentioned to try to help students who are struggling the most, and then ends up actually getting adopted by students who need it the least. MOOCs, just to give a dumb example, were supposed to be the great equalizer, and then it turns out most of the people who took them already had degrees. So, I worry about that in this area. I was at a workshop on Tuesday where equity was a really big focus, and I hope that folks will think a lot about how these tools can be used to help underprepared, underserved students, because I think the applications that serve them will actually serve everyone. But if you build for the students who are sort of most privileged, doing the best in education, those applications will probably not be as useful for people who are struggling.
Yeah. You mentioned, and I want to go back to this, you mentioned teachers just sort of trying to keep up, or there's this new technology coming in that potentially makes research irrelevant. Something that I've been just thinking about is this, again, this is the first time that technology has come into the picture that could potentially make teachers irrelevant. And it's not happening at this point, right? But down the road, I mean, if you look at the way that ChatGPT has evolved, or GPT 3 to 4 has evolved and gone so quickly from being sort of a novelty to like passing the bar exam, this thing is growing really fast, getting better really fast. And in 5 years, 10 years, what are we going to be looking at? And I guess, what's your thought on just, should educators be afraid? Should educators be thinking, this is going to eat my lunch? I should get out now, get my retirement package, and let the computers take over the world?
Yeah, I kind of think the opposite, actually. I think, now or maybe soon is going to be like a really good time to get into education, because education has traditionally been terrible, right? It's poorly compensated, highly stressful.
Yeah.
If you're in K-12, especially in the public school system, like you're spending a lot of time doing behavior management as much as you are doing education,
Sure.
and so on. And we already mentioned like all of these super labor intensive things that teachers are expected to do. And I think these tools have the potential to really help them. I think humans are always going to be a critical part of education, especially the younger the students are, right? It's as much a social growth and learning experience as it is an intellectual one. And we need humans for that. We need humans to be the mentors and the guides, and to help students learn to collaborate, socialize with their peers, and all those sorts of things. In K-12 education, subject matter expertise matters less because you're teaching students more foundational material. I think that can be even more true in a world where you have AI providing content and so on. So teachers can really be the master facilitators. They can be the ones who really understand their students on a sort of human level, and, offload the thing that they don't know about history. Like even the best history professor doesn't know everything about all of history, to the machines and so on. So it has the potential to be very powerful in that way and make us all better teachers. As you get older, and you can become more independent as a learner, then yeah, do you need to go to a live class with a teacher? Maybe not. Maybe you can self-learn using a tutor and using the technology. And I think that's great. There are some people who will always prefer to learn in a cohort-based social type environment with an actual expert. And I think, there'll be the role for those people. But I think as lifelong learning as a field might really evolve more in terms of the role of the teacher and the facilitator in that. But there are some things that, at least, without getting really far into the future about what AI may or may not be able to do, that for now, when it comes to understanding kind of the moral dimension of our decision making, what purposes do we want to put technology to? Like, how do we make decisions about our own life pathways? What should we study? What problems should we work on? Right? Those are things that, for me, for right now, I want to talk to a human about, and I think most students are going to benefit from that too, even graduate students, advanced students, and so on. So that kind of human guidance, I think, is going to remain really important in the education system. The first thing when you have this conversation with most folks is you have to kind of cut through the concerns about cheating and academic integrity. And I know you guys did a whole podcast episode on this, which I listened to.
Did you learn something just now? Get the full episode of Ways We Learn wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, we'd love to get your rating or review.